This is the Criterion Creeps podcast, and tonight we're talking about Band of Outsiders from 1964, directed by Jean-Luc Godard. The tagline for this film, a whodunit, who's got it, where is it now, wild one from that breathless director Jean-Luc Godard. And the synopsis for this film...
Okay.
Cinephile slackers Franz and Arthur spend their days mimicking the anti-heroes of Hollywood noirs and westerns while pursuing the lovely Odelay. This misfit trio upends convention at every turn, be it through choreographed dance in cafes or frolicsome romps through the Louvre. Eventually, their romantic view of outlaws pushes them to plan their own heist, but their inexperience may send them out in a blaze of glory, which could be just what they want. So tonight we're joined by returning co-host number 3 here, Frank Solano. Hi, Frank.
Bonjour.
And he wanted to join us for some Godard action. Hot Godard. We've talked about this Godard a couple times previous. We talked about that Alphaville. Just recently, we talked about that Contempt, and now here we are once again with Band Apart. You know that movie that Tarantino named his production company after?
Is that what people say?
Yeah, well, it is a factoid. It is an actual thing, but
What a nerd.
I feel like that's an element of the movie that I think is well trodden, and a lot of people probably have sought it out because of the Tarantino connection. So anyway, this is a movie that I watched only for the first time 6-7 years ago. It was just one of those movies that I was waiting for the Blu-ray to come out. It finally did, and I watched it. And I was kind of like, oh, is that it? And then, because I think at that point I was also, I really like Breathless a lot. And so I was kind of expecting something similar to Band of Outsiders, and kind of being like, you read about this movie. I mean, even reading the description of this movie about cinephiles. I'm like, are they really cinephiles? It's not like you see them sitting around in theaters and I feel like it's kind of they just threw in bits where it's hey, they talk about movies, but it's not it doesn't feel convincing to me, and I feel like playing that up is totally misleading. So anyway, what do you want to say, RJ?
I was just gonna say, I felt like I watched the movie and then I went to the Letterboxd page and I saw that thing about them being cinephiles, and I was reading the description. I was like, noir and western, and they act it, and then they get the desire to do it on their own. And I was like, did I watch a completely fucking different movie? I was like, where did this come from? Did I miss it entirely?
Yeah.
Did you guys feel the same way, or
what do you think, Frank?
I don't think I didn't really look into the movie that much when it came to the summaries of the movies or anything. I kind of went in blind. I even bought it blind and everything. I kind of knew a little bit. I knew the Tarantino fact,
yeah,
and stuff. But I was looking through the special features on the Blu-ray, and they had a little segment where it's see the references of the movie to other movies and watch them be explained. And I skipped over it. I didn't watch it. I didn't care.
Excellent. We're up to our level here. So
yeah, they're just kids. They're not really not even kids. Yeah. They're grown men.
Yeah,
acting like kids.
Yeah. So we got this movie. We know about that Jean-Luc Godard. We know he's kind of one of the major figures of the French New Wave, that he makes films like essays. So maybe don't watch them like traditional movies, yada yada. So here we are with this is my third time now watching Band of Outsiders. The second time I watched this movie, just a couple years ago, I was in the midst of watching Godard movies more intensely, close proximity to one another. And I liked this movie more the second time than the first. And so I found it surprising watching this movie for the third time that I was kind of back to not feeling this movie much at all. It was back to kind of feeling like the first time I watched it. And maybe it's because I watched this coming off of watching super dad wavy movies like Kelly's Heroes, The Dirty Dozen, Patton, all these war movies that are total traditional Hollywood movies. And then you hop into Band of Outsiders and you're like, oh, you have this really great opening title with the faces looping over top of one another, but it's just simple edits, and it's just this whole loop, the way it's intensely cut, you're just oh man, that's so nice. The use of the fun music, the use of Godard's use of text is always amazing. It always looks so great. and he's often copied by every like filmmaker that loves that Godard kind of flair, like a Wes Anderson, I think, likes that sort of thing. But yeah, I mean, nothing about the story of Band of Outsiders has ever really grabbed me. Because the movie, it's like these guys they're planning a heist, and they have an inside girl who's the housekeeper there, and they're all learning English because English is the cool thing. You want to know how to speak. If you want to be part of the world, you want to be part of the cosmopolitan scene, you got to know English. So they're all kind of like but it's like at the same time these guys are like half-assedly doing it because they're like, well, yeah, she's pretty cool, I guess. Yeah, I'll learn English. Like, yeah, it's pretty superficial reasons to do it, but that's life. And so we have these like sequences of them driving. Oh, the back of the heads of them driving around. I don't know. Some people I think are really into that sort of thing. For me, I don't know. It's not even like particularly well shot in my opinion. Like to me, I'm just like, oh, that looks like a guy sitting in the backseat of a car, which is exactly what they were doing, filming the scene, right? Like that's what it would look like with like a huge camera. You get those scenes where like they're doing the stuff on the streets, walking through crowds. You can see the people just like looking at the film being shot because they're like, we don't need to block this off because like, yeah, fuck it. It's like this is we're making movies and these people are just part of the experience. Like that's again that new wave flourish of Godard breaking down planes of viewing. This is his follow-up to Contempt, right? I think I don't know. I think he did Contempt, then Band of Outsiders. Was there anything in between? Somebody wants to check on that for me.
I'll check up on it.
Yeah, so because interesting.
I don't know. You tell me.
Ugh. Okay. Thanks. But so anyway, yeah, they're learning English. We have a whole sequence like with Romeo and Juliet being read to one another, and it goes on for quite some time. And then we're back out on the streets, ripping and roaring. There's parties. There's cafe dance scenes that have been used for people putting their own songs over top of and calling that a music video. It's been reenacted many a time. It's more novel, I guess, inside the movie than when it gets referenced because like you get the whole like aspect. I don't know. For me, this movie also kind of reminds me of Jules and Jim, which is a movie which is Truffaut's movie that I think is fantastic. I love that movie, and I think it's a lot more interesting than Band of Outsiders. That's just my opinion, but I feel like I find the characters like more satisfying than in this, where I find our cinephile slackers, Franz and Arthur, I find them to just kind of be like, I don't know, French dudes. And I don't want to be like them. I don't know why I want to hang out with them. And Odile, she's just like, I don't know, this girl that's hanging out with them. And so you're watching these three guys hanging out, and they have this heist that they're going to pull on this woman that she's the housekeeper for. And then eventually we get the heist, and it's like, I mean, again, he's breaking down all these genre conventions of these movies that he is writing about. In the Cahiers du Cinema, and I guess he's interested in it, and a lot of other people who are like big fans of Godard, of this type of Godard, are fans of this, I guess, because it's so popular. But I don't know. Watching it this time, I just didn't find it that engaging at all. But I don't know. Those are my thoughts. I'm gonna throw it to you two now.
I'm just gonna cut in and say I will say this did come after Contempt. That's all I was gonna say.
Yeah, okay, it was right after. It was so right. He went from like doing this like huge, like colorful CinemaScope widescreen movie, to like this like back to small scale like breathless size filmmaking, like the streets of Paris, like gritty like stripped down cinema, like real people playing out these ridiculous situations while also keeping it real, with little mentions about China and like Godard's like ever blossoming love of like communism forever. He loves Chinese communism, boy oh boy, and he'll let you know over the next 10 years. But yeah, I don't know. What do you guys think of Band of Outsiders?
I'll let RJ go first this time.
Take it away, Frank.
We already said RJ. Oh. You're going.
Okay, well, I'm gonna try. I'm gonna try just for a little look at how the sausage is made back there. I only heard about half of what Jarrett was saying because of my internet for some reason. So if I start to fizzle out, maybe you guys give me a hand signal or something, because it's getting a little rough on my end, boys. Some rough cabbage over here. But I'll let you know what I think of a Band Apart. So Jarrett was talking about his kind of like his opinion of this movie each time he's watched it, and not like really being into these dudes. And I have to agree for the most part, where I was watching these guys and I was like, what is their plan? And then I was like, what is this heist? And I was like, the lady said that there was a mound of money. I was like, what does that entail? Like, what is a mound of money? And I was like, this isn't very well thought out. And it's like, well, I'm sure a lot of like bandits don't really think out their plans very well, or it's probably a lot of the time it's like, man, there's money in there. But then they show up and it's like, I don't know, like $10 or something. So you're like, oh, okay. I guess maybe, you can give the bandit plot a little bit of slack, because you're like, all right, sure, maybe that happens. I think this is like a quirky rom-com where I honestly don't really see the Tarantino stuff. I see like a lot of other people, like not even, I wouldn't say Wes Anderson, but like I can see where people would make a connection like that. But it's got a lot of like rom-com things where I think Godard plays around with editing a lot, where he sometimes edits, he cuts things together like with sound or without sound. And this movie plays around with that a lot. Like there's the very obvious one where it's like, let's have a minute of silence. And then it just goes silent.
Complete silence.
And it's like, ooh, isn't that quirky? But I think he like does that, I think, a few other times in the film, throughout the film too, where like the one that I first noticed was when in a scene that I actually think is really cool, where the girl is running from her house to go meet the guys, and kind of like whenever it cuts back to her, there's like playful music playing, but then it'll cut to the guys and there'll be like no music, kind of. It doesn't totally do it, but it seems like that's like where the skeleton of that came from, because it does it a little bit. So he kind of like cuts around with sound, and then he also like kind of edits to where the action is, where it'll be like someone will be talking and it'll be like, I think in this movie he's talking about how, or the narrator is like, and then he told her about how he was once on the street and he saw a guy walking funny, and then it'll just cut to him like walking really like disabled, I guess, is how he's walking maybe. But it's like played off like a joke. So I think it has those kinds of like editing qualities that I think you would associate with like a rom-com thing. So I see it more like that. I don't think I ever said, I think this movie is okay. There are things that I liked about it, and there are things that I didn't like. I was more or less, I'm probably in between like Jarrett's take and then a little bit more to being on board with it. I'm trying not to be so not caring and apathetic about all the movies we watch, but I feel like we're in a real funk with these movies lately, where it's like I don't find there's anything like real to care about in this. But I did make some notes about the movie itself that I think you guys might find interesting. My first note was, what the fuck kind of parking is that? This dude just like drives up to a sidewalk and just like parks his car half on the sidewalk, half on the street. And then you see him driving around in France, and he's driving like a fucking maniac. Like, have you guys ever seen him driving like that in your entire lives?
Yeah.
Yeah?
People are pretty bad drivers, man. People
my
are
grandfather.
real bad. Yeah, see?
Okay, fair enough.
His grandfather's Godardian.
Fair enough. Here's my next one. So the subtitles for this movie, there is a part where people are talking about like they don't know something, and in the subtitles it says "dunno," like I don't know, like DUNNO, like I don't know, and I was like, huh. So like, I wonder if that was actually like something like wrote out at the time, or is that like a new translation and they're just it's like people now writing subtitles for a movie from years ago. What do you guys think? Does that make sense how I explained that?
Yeah.
What's your opinion?
I think, yeah, it seems like, I mean, the Criterion, I think every time they restore something, they'll try to give them new subtitles and stuff. It might be just like trying to cut corners on time, maybe, or it might, just be trying to appeal to a younger audience as well.
So here's a little follow-up for that too. There is a moment in this movie where they do the full subtitle of "I don't know." Mm-hmm. So I was like, okay, is it like a slang euphemism almost, where it's just like people talking real casually, like I don't know. But it just struck me because I was like, I wonder if they were actually using that in like 1960s France, or if this is a recent thing. Does this matter at all for the movie? Not at all.
Not at all.
But I'm not going to stop until I get everyone's opinion on this. Jarrett, what do you think?
I don't care.
Good to know. I kind of thought that you and Arthur had a lot of things in common. He was a very unlikable character. He's doping, or he's pouring alcohol into that sweet young lady's drink, trying to get her all jacked up without her knowing. And I was like, that's a real Duncan thing. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Am I cutting out?
A little bit.
Okay, well I'll keep going until I follow. At 57 minutes and 45 seconds, Jarrett, there is a scene at a train station. There is a fake child in that scene.
A fake child. Now, is this like because it's like a dummy of a child, or is it a man child?
It could be either of those. I have a screen cap. I'll put it on Instagram tomorrow. But it looks like a little kid wearing like a rubber thing over its head, but intentionally trying to make it look real. I don't know why it's in this movie. I find it very upsetting. I'll send it to both of you guys as soon as I'm done talking, and you can tell me if you also think it's a fake child. But it's definitely a fake child. And I think it's weird. Other than that, I think this movie has a lot of... I'll send it to you.
Things are getting real Jacob's Ladder in here.
Okay. I think this movie is okay. I liked parts of it. I do agree with Jared. It's sometimes I found it hard to care for either of these guys, and I mostly just felt bad for Odell because I was like, man, they're really manipulating this sweet young girl, and she doesn't see it. So,
Yeah.
Hey Frank, what did you think of this movie?
So from what I'm getting from you guys, I probably enjoyed this the most, but I think I have the same issues with the film. Just Arthur just being a little prick, and France wasn't that bad. I think it's mostly Arthur doing all the dumb stuff. But you get 30 minutes into the movie and you're like, why do I care about these guys? Where I think Odell is most definitely the person that you sympathize with the most.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I think it has to do with the actors, because Anna Karina, she's a Godard's muse and everything. Everybody knows her for that. But I think that she's really given some great performances because of her relationship with Godard. And I don't know maybe how the relationship was at this point of filming, but I always felt like that might affect
it's performance. It's definitely getting worse at this point.
It's going downhill. And I mean, the way that the characters talk about women, about how they, only think about breasts and stuff like that.
Her bra under the sweater.
Looks like the kid's wearing a helmet.
Yeah. That's what I was going to say. That's not a fake child, RJ.
Yeah, the way his leg is bent.
It's definitely a fake child. That head is so shiny.
Yeah.
That can't be a real person.
That's from a cat.
You guys are crazy.
It's not hair.
No, but it moves. It moves like it's a head.
Let's not talk about things that people can't see. So
I'll put it on the Instagram right fucking now, and I'll put
you know what
fake child.
The one thing I'm not looking forward to is like we've like hitting this point on YouTube where we have like these like real winners now who are like getting recommendations of our shows, and they're watching it and then they just leave the worst comments, the worst garbage of comments of all time. So looking forward to that.
It's okay. YouTube comments don't matter.
Nothing matters at the end of the day, but yeah, I don't know.
Even more.
Just to throw it out there, folks. Yeah, I do like some Godard movies. Vivre sa vie, amazing. 2 or 3 things I know about her, amazing. Perrault La Fou, Masculine Feminine, Weekend, all great movies. It's just this isn't as good as any of those movies.
Yeah, I think whenever I looked through the reviews, the first thing that I saw that like caught my eye after watching the movie was somebody had written that it was the most conventional, which I don't think I was expecting because it's Godard. But in a way, you're watching it, and it doesn't have like that the wild editing or like some of the other stuff that he brings, like with 2 or 3 things I know about her, and then even with Vivre sa vie, it is pretty conventional in a Godard sense of the word.
I think it's those genre trappings he's bringing into the movie. Like as far as like it's supposed to be it's like a heist movie, and then you can see that there's like parts of like Wes Anderson Bottle Rocket where it's like that's also like it's like a heist movie with a bunch of like people who have no business doing this sort of thing because they're not violent enough to like be good at this or like canny enough. They're just like people, which I mean, criminals are just people, but the more successful ones, you kind of have like a savageness to yourself, and then these guys do not have that. These are just like regular people who fancy themselves hard men who want to accomplish this crime. And I get all that. I get all these like ideas in the movie, but I just feel like I don't know. I'm not really into that. Like I'm not into this way of telling that story. And even if it was like more of like a straight, perhaps more mainstream presentation of it, I wouldn't care about that version either. I don't know. It's just like it's just a tale that I don't like. I don't know. You have to try really hard to get me engaged with it. Otherwise, I don't know. It keeps me at arm's length because of the story itself. And then like there's like the obvious like visual elements, like the Godard black and white, the way he photographs things, like all those things are like, yeah, I get it. Those are all nice. But
you saying that reminds me, we have to talk about how bad the Criterion Blu-ray cover is. It's just a still.
Yeah. It's nothing. It's nothing special at all.
Yeah, no, they could have done so much with that. That's the thing. I feel like this movie, like it has so much that it could have gone for, but at the same time, like you said, he was kind of like relying on plot points from movies that he enjoyed, and that might have like restricted him a lot more. Whereas I feel like the best moments are the ones where we hear the narration, the kind of God voice speaking on how the characters are feeling. And I actually, so I guess I haven't really said, I was kind of won over by the movie over time.
Yeah.
Like I said, the first 30 minutes, I was like, I like how it looks sometimes. The characters aren't that great in the beginning. And like you get to know them and you care even less, I think, just because you kind of understand where it's going. But I think it wasn't until like the actual heist that I started to like the movie, mostly because of like how everything plays out, where you see Arthur was kind of the worst of the 3, and he gets the worst ending. He gets dead. Yeah. So
just like he does when he gets when they're gunning each other down in the streets with their fake guns and play acting, he's the one who gets also shot too.
Foreshadowing, right?
Speaking of which, that death scene is some of the most John Lovitz acting I have ever seen. And when it happened, for a minute I was like, is this movie gonna like take a holy mountain turn where at the end the cameras turn on themselves and it's like it was a movie all along? Because I was like, there's no one who thought that death scene was believable.
Well, I don't think it was at all wanting to convince you of that.
Well, but like, you don't think Godard at some point was like, hey, he like pulled Arthur aside. He's like, I know what you're going for, man, but like, what you're doing is fucking crazy.
I think he said maybe go for it more. I want more intensity, faster.
Just more. Just bring it on a little bit more, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That doesn't even bother me at all. That's like not one of my issues with it. I just felt that I don't know. So continue, Frank. I've talked about this movie. What do you like it? Do you like Godard? Like, how many Godards have you seen?
Okay. Let me take a look at my letterbox. Yeah, Godard's one of those guys that like every once in a while, if I'm feeling up for it, then I'll watch. But that's almost never, you know. So I've seen 4 because I've seen Breathless, which hot take I don't really care for.
Yeah, cool.
But Pierrot Le Fou and Vivre sa vie are amazing. And I own Contempt. I own A Woman is a Woman. And I own... What's the other one? Alphaville.
Okay.
But I have yet to see... Oh, no. You know what? I've seen 2 or 3 things about her as well. Okay.
Well, what about Jules and Jim?
No.
No? Because, well, Jarrett mentioned it. Like, that... They get compared, right, Jarrett?
Well,
or no?
No, I don't know. That's like more my thing. That's like, I don't know. I see people always like bring up Jules and Jim. I see people are negative on it. And I'm always like, what? Come on.
No,
guys.
that movie's great.
Yeah, I don't know. It says whatever.
I think something else that I kind of began, like what kind of changed my mind as I was watching the movie was kind of how everything falls apart. There was no plan to begin with. You know what they're going to try to do. But it starts all just to fall apart the moment that they even start talking about it. You know? Like, it just... It's kind of like you bring something up, and then it happens, like on the show, where, you guys bring up some actor, they turn up dead in a few weeks. Stuff like that. So it's just everything goes wrong, right? And I think that the way that it all goes down was kind of like the only way it could have gone down, which I don't know. I don't know what I'm talking about.
Well, I mean, that's like the Romeo and Juliet thing, though, too, right? It's ill-fated lovers, but it's like only one of them's ill-fated. It's like, oh,
I think
kind of like our podcast.
Indeed. Skype's trying to kill
the
RJ
moment
tonight.
that did kind of lose me was the very last bit that they did survive, and just the little car ride that they had at the very end.
Yeah, so when we got to that moment, I kind of like forgot about that. I was like, wait, don't they like, doesn't both guys die? Like, in my mind, they both got killed. I'm like, wait a minute.
Even in the letterbox, the letterbox summary, it says that they meet their fates or something. And it's just...
Yeah, it's two of them go on a boat ride.
So yeah, I think the ending doesn't give any real like closure to the story, which is something else that might be Godard breaking the barriers of film. But I don't think that worked very well for the movie. But I mean, I'm trying to think of positives.
Well, I think Frank, I would have. You would have liked the dramatic with all your Wong Kar-wai films. So this little interplay of this love triangle. It seems like that would be something you'd be into.
Kind of. I do like. I mean, I see traces of that, like in Wong Kar-wai's films, the narration and stuff. Which is that's probably why I like that stuff. But there's I don't know. I think it mostly has to do with Anna Karina's performance, in my opinion. Why I wasn't as negative towards this, because honestly, I was engaged. I didn't really lose track of the film. I was watching the entire time, and it was late when I watched it, which is almost never good for a Jean-Luc Godard film to watch his films late at night. That's more like a morning thing. But I didn't really ever sidetrack. So I think that was something I was going to talk about. Is I didn't ever lose sight of the film. I was always in it, you know. And then
Yeah.
Anna Karina's performance, I think, despite her character being flawed in the sense that the way she was written wasn't very well-rounded, which I mean you can attribute to the times and Godard's own personal vendetta against women. I feel like her performance is really a standout, whereas the other two guys, I think the actor for Franz did pretty well, but he did well enough. Where Arthur's actor just didn't really do anything for me.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I agree. That's like when I'm talking to Jarrett and people on the YouTube are always like, yeah, that Jarrett guy doesn't really do it for me. It's like, I get it, but he's filling the role that he's supposed to play, you know? Because I thought the same thing. I was like, man, Arthur's such a fucking asshole, and I just feel bad for Odile. But it's kind of, I guess it's realistic because sometimes like a friend of yours, a guy or a girl will be after someone who's just a complete asshole, and you're just like, what do they see in that person? But there's some kind of like attraction that they don't understand, and then you're just like, I guess go for it. But everyone else watching this scene is just like, that guy's a fucking prick.
It's that toxic relationship stuff we were talking about in the preamble.
Yeah. It's like Jared and me. It's a toxic relationship, and it always has been, always. But we can't change it, Frank, because it's like in Happy Together. We're just forced together all the time, and then me and Jared are gonna go to a lighthouse and air our woes. You don't know what I'm talking about, Jared. That's a joke between me and Frank.
In one car.
And yeah, and the other 3 fans listening, they won't know what we're talking about either, except for Wong Kar-wai. He's a fan of this podcast, right?
Big fan.
Big fan.
Nothing else to do in China.
Well, it is the only Criterion podcast, so what else is he going to listen to?
Yeah. Well, you guys, do you want to hear about who hates this movie?
Sure.
Well, then.
Yeah.
We got Daniel, who gave this half a star. Not to be a contrarian asshole, which sure I am mostly. But how the fuck did Godard ever get famous? What am I not seeing? What command of cinema am I supposed to take away from his dull, flat, meandering French-ass bullshit? I mean, fuck me. He's supposed to be one of the greats, and I feel like I'm watching a student film from a not particularly talented student every time. Is it just I've seen the evolution of everything he did evolve to a point where it became entertainment and thusly cannot appreciate the genesis of such in these tepid flicks? Is it because he's actually a ponderous, masturbatory hack who fooled the world? I don't fucking know.
So, Jarrett.
Yep.
Daniel's a repeat offender. Before I get, which is quite a bit. Oh, rough.
Start again.
Oh, okay. So
he's a repeat
Daniel,
offender.
He's a repeat offender. He's got 60,000 tweets, which I think is telling. But Daniel is the person with the bio that says, I'm an insane person who sometimes just writes whatever instead of a review because I got bored of the movie. They continue to talk about how they, whenever they watch movies, they're probably fucked to the gills on drugs, really getting into it. So Daniel's a repeat offender.
Of course.
Yep.
Cool.
Good guy.
Yeah, I wonder what his previous offender movie was. Who cares? What do I got to say about this? It definitely does not feel like I don't know. Godard does not feel like a particularly untalented or whatever student. Like he definitely like his movies are like there's something to them. They look great. There's something to the movies, but yeah, I wouldn't go that far as saying he's a talentless hack. But anyway, I love it.
Daniel was probably fucked to the gills.
That's true. Rorschach 00, 1.5 star. The first Godard I managed to sit through without bailing since his short yet equally insufferable segment in Far From Vietnam. Easily the worst director of probably the worst film wave.
What other waves are there? Dad wave?
Australian new wave? German new wave? Come on. RJ. American New Wave.
Okay.
Watching
Wave.
this, Dad Wave, watching this, or any of his movies really, especially the later on you go, is as painful as it is a waste of your time. I watched this so you don't have to, basically. Now, not even Jesus would go through this much for his own followers. Oh,
Seems unnecessary.
what is? Yeah, that one's like not even good, man. What? Tell me about Rorschach.
Okay, so favorite films include, was it Michael Mann's Black Hat from 2015?
Yeah.
Okay. 2000 Silver Globe.
Oh, you're being hacked. I think you're being hacked, like in Black Hat.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, on the Silver Globe, 1988. Dreams.
These are 5-star movies?
These are favorite films.
Oh, I don't know. Black Hat's a weird pick, but that Under Silver Globe is a fascinating 5-star movie.
And then Dreams from 1990.
The Kurosawa movie.
Yeah. And like half-star films are just like Neil Breen's and scary movies. Wait a minute. Freddy Got Fingered and Joe Dirt. Those aren't half-star movies.
Wow.
Those are like 4 stars at least, both of them.
Hey, in big news, there was an article popping around how Tom Green should be considered performance art.
Well, I mean, if Shia LaBeouf can do it, why can't Tom Green?
Exactly.
Right?
And then finally, for the hate, we have Nick S. with 1.5 star. Given this one's influence on Tarantino and Pulp Fiction in particular, I've been dying to check out this, my first Godard film. And while I dug its occasional flashy bits of flaunting cinematic convention, the cafe dance scene and moment of silence in particular, but I also dug the cheeky, fourth wall breaking narrator. The rest was so pretentious as to be borderline unwatchable. I tried really hard to keep an open mind, but I couldn't sustain it in the face of incredibly long, drawn-out scenes of 2 crappy dudes being awful to a dumb girl with some promise of an eventual, if anticlimactic, non-heist in exaggerated bits of self-satisfied filmmaking pretending to be cool, jazzy poetry. I can appreciate some experimental takes on movies, even narrative-free ones, but this was a painful slog. The 1.5 stars are solely for the dance scene, which is an obvious classic.
Oh, obviously, Jarrett.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Doesn't that just make you like dislike it more when people say shit like that?
A little bit. I mean, I just find it's like when everyone just like hammers on one thing, it's like, well, did you think that or did you just read that on the internet? Because that's where all my opinions come from, is from the internet.
We didn't talk about that. Did we all like that scene, or is it just?
Yeah, it's fine.
I mean, I thought it was good. Yeah,
yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was good. I had no idea that it was such this infamous thing until after I watched the movie, and I went on Wikipedia, and there's a whole section about the dance scene. I was like, ooh.
Oh yeah, Godard is just about the dance.
Mm-hmm. Well, Nick S is just about Nick shit.
I think that might be why this is probably Godard's like most watched. It's the most conventional, right? That we've seen so far. I mean, stuff like that is easy to enjoy, you know.
Yeah.
So that might be it. I don't know.
This movie, I don't know. At times, at its worst, it kind of feels like fodder for like film school essays. Like that's which is like, that's like the audience that he's engaging with, though. It's like film theory.
It seems like most of the criticisms were like generally towards Godard himself and his choices instead of the movie, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's Godard's fault.
Yeah.
Maybe somebody else could have made this better.
Even like, I don't know. I never want to go down that route, I guess. Like the movie is what it is. It's his movie, and he's got to own that. So I don't know. It just for me it didn't work this week. Maybe like another time in the future I'll be like more positive on it again. But I don't know. It's got kind of a weird kind of hollowness to watching it, where it felt like a chore rather than like a really enjoyable experience. Where I was like, I get this. Like, I'm totally on board.
Get prepared for YouTube hate.
That's fine.
Yeah. Well,
They stopped listening like 20 minutes ago.
Hopefully.
True.
Hopefully. But I think I'm in between Jared and Frank too, where like I thought the movie was fine. There were some scenes where I was kind of bored, drifting away, and then there were some scenes that I really liked, but more of for the movie itself, like the whole part or the whole thing, I was kind of just like, yeah. I was like, I don't know. I don't like these guys. I don't find this
great filmmaking.
I don't find the story super believable.
That's all I want in my movies is. It's like no, it's like fuck off. That's not what I'm not here to watch movies about that shit. That makes it's just like it makes me mad. You know, it's just like no, movies should be like more than that, and they are all the time. There's so many good movies.
I tried my best to convey what I like. I just
I don't blame anyone for liking this movie. Like if it works for you, awesome. Like that's like I'm really glad. Just for me though, I was just like, oh man.
Yeah,
considering
never
the
know. I
reputation,
might watch it again, and
you might like it more.
might like it more, might like it less. I don't know.
I don't know. Sometimes it's like, you gotta listen to all those special features, those making ofs, dig real deep, and it'll give you that appreciation for it. But, I don't know.
It works sometimes.
Any final thoughts?
That kid was definitely fake. That was a fake child.
I mean,
I don't care what you guys say.
When you turn your head and you got a helmet that looks like it's 10 times bigger than your head, I'm pretty sure you would turn your head and like the helmet wouldn't move naturally with you, right? It would kind of have its own.
Probably not, but my big takeaway here is that I don't know what Jean-Luc Godard thought he was doing, but I'm not on board with it. Whatever this fake ass child had. So, I see things. I see things, Frank.
So
how did you catch that?
Okay, I got one more I'll throw out there. So of the three movies, Alphaville's the best Godard so far.
Yes, I agree.
Haven't seen it yet.
You haven't seen Godard or Alphaville yet? Oh boy.
I have it. I have a digital. It sucks when they're on digital.
Well, there's now a Kino just put out the Blu-ray of that, or it's coming out right away. So
I'll have to watch it first.
After the break, I get gunned down and killed, and Frank and RJ get away on that magical adventure to the tropics where they spend their lives together.
We're gonna get a fake child and move to Argentina.
Beautiful.